hours of Russell's compositions at this point, literally hours. We have spent untold weeks, months in the trenches together in the studio, and I'm going to just give you a little bit of what I feel when I know that I'm recording different Blizzard composers' work, but especially when I get to Russell's.
Here it comes.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a €100 note in my back pocket from earlier, that would be the little Hylian in the back there. He has his own hashtag.
Singing the songs of his people.
Yeah, exactly. As Alan Duggan said, we like the mournful Queenu, which is the Irish for lament. For me, when I see Russell's score on the stand in front of me, it means a couple of things. He's going to stop crying any second now. It means that I'm going to stall the meaningfulness until he stops being tortured in the background now. It means to me that this is a person whose music is absolutely connected to his heart, and who takes responsibility for the experience that World of Warcraft fans or any of the Blizzard IPs, what a fan is going to experience inside the game. He takes personal responsibility for that person's experience, and I guess we all do. It really is. It's very driving, it's very inspiring. We have massive accountability. We want to do a great job because we know how meaningful it is to people. So he's still going. So when I see Russell's music on the stand, I know that the way I'm going to conduct it is different. I'm going to try and I'm going to give you the technical perspective. I've never told them this, by the way. But from an emotional perspective, it has to be, I'm going to try and get the performance from the orchestra way above the nuts and bolts. Everything, of course, has to be perfectly in tune, perfectly performed, all of that. But beyond that, we want the music to be jumping off the recording in a way that is human and meaningful and touches people. So when I see Russell's score, that means to me, in a technical perspective, I'm going to be asking the string section lots of vibrato, heavy on the string, and lots and lots and lots of emotion. Because everybody, Russell is definitely a composer who writes with both his intellect and his heart, and that is absolutely the truth. So everybody, Russell Brower. So, now for the questions. Okay. I haven't got started yet. Now for the questions. So I'm going to start with asking some very technical questions, and then we'll get into the creativity. And I know, spoiler alert, that Russell has a very special surprise. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to let him surprise you, but I want you to start getting excited right now. And it's exclusive to Dublin, exclusive to you guys. Nobody else in the world is getting this, but that's all.
It didn't exist 4 days ago.
It didn't exist 4 days ago, which is also typical of Russell. It's unbelievable. He wrote some of the score to Diablo 3 in the Shelburne Hotel in his hotel room. But we'll tell more stories about that in a little bit. So the first question for people here who are creating games and who are composing for games, what does an audio director do?
I think that our games, any game, like any form of entertainment, each component should be as special and as unique as all the other components, and everything works together to provide an experience, tell a story, what have you. And in games, let's back up to films. We have obviously picture and sound. A couple of famous directors have been equally credited with saying sound is 50% of the experience. Thank you. Would like to believe that's true. And maybe in games it's more like thirds because you have gameplay, obviously. but that's kind of the potential it could get to, because a lot of games are fun without sound, and sound won't rescue a poor game. So at Blizzard we say gameplay first. So I think the role of whoever's kind of at the top of the steering the ship is to keep that bird's eye view and consider that we have a sonic brand. It's every bit as unique as the logos and the characters and the stories. And so it doesn't mean I do everything, far from it. It means that, first of all, we have to create an environment that is conducive to creativity and is safe. I have a whole speech I give, like to colleges and students and stuff, where whenever art and commerce converge, it's a dangerous place for creative people, because we tend to be sensitive and but it's our passion. Like, we can't do anything else. We couldn't imagine doing anything else. Sometimes we're forced to, but if you're living your dream, you've sacrificed a lot. So I guess I finally gotten to a place where I work at, a wonderful company that has great stories to tell and great projects. And so let's keep this environment a safe, happy place for people to feel creative and not be in battle all the time, and protect budgets and things like that. There's all that kind of thing. But to Blizzard's credit, I've never been told no. I remember when Mike Morheim, who's head of the company, one of the co-founders, CEO, said, "So why do you want to go to Abbey Road to record this thing?" And I gave him a bunch of numbers and charts and stuff, and he was like, and I felt like this silence, and I fortunately felt I had to fill it, and I said, and it's cool. And he goes, "Okay," and he signs his name. So that's
but he's also a bass player, so.
And a piano player. He loves music, so.
When I saw him play at BlizzCon, I thought he was amazing. I couldn't believe the band was just really, really good. And they warmed up for Metallica, so yeah, that was serious.
And a dream come true for them, for sure.
Yeah. So what are let's break it down in terms of responsibility, because absolutely you do create a safe, you are our sensei who creates a safe haven for us to be individual voices as artists, and you being such an individual voice as an artist and a true artist, it's rare to have somebody who's so creative be so good as a department head as well. So what are your responsibilities as a department head outside of creating the safe haven and outside of being the lead composer as well?
Well, there's management of a department, and that's pretty much typical of any sort of management gig. And I pride myself in having one foot in creative and one foot in the more left brain space. However, I would love to be purely creative. And people ask me, well, why do you, when you have a musical voice and dreams and stuff, why would you be head of a department? And my answer is generally, I wanted to get to that leadership position so I could reduce the number of people that could tell me how to do sound to the lowest number possible. And at Blizzard, there's a whole bunch of people who can tell myself and my crew how to do sound. But we respect them all because they're at the top of their craft, and we can learn from each other, as opposed to a situation where there's someone who just has no idea, like maybe the sound is an afterthought and they expect us to work miracles and don't realize what they're putting us through. So it's that I sort of like bear and endure the management stuff so I can keep in that role. However, who knows? Maybe that'll change someday, because we've built a nice department and things are moving smoothly. Maybe I can focus more on the creatives.
So, aside from the music, what are the other sort of mini productions inside of the audio department, like the mini departments inside of the audio department?
If it moves a speaker cone somewhere, we do it. I mean, so it's not just the games, it's the cinematics within the games, it's cinematics outside of the games, trailers, it's BlizzCon. We do our BlizzCon things, and there's so much audiovisual material, and if there's visual, there's probably audio to go with it. Last year we did the post-production for probably 700 plus videos, and none of those had to do with the games. These were all ancillary stuff. It could be sales things, sounds for the web, just effects for BattleNet. We even record and maintain the phone tree that you hear when you call our place. So it's music, sound effects, voiceover. There's an infrastructure that works with the legal department. We're one of the most heavy users of our legal department because there's so much intellectual property being worked on. So every one of these things has a contract. When we work with outside composers, freelancers like this one here, we try and bury her with paperwork. We hide all the onerous stuff where, you saw Eliam, he's mine actually. She signed him over. No, not that way, but no, she signed him over. No, I'm kidding. It's
Tommy Tallarico's gonna love this. I have to send him video. You're in so much
and edit it at the right point. No, I mean it just the legal department's awesome. My favorite lawyer at Blizzard, his last name is Crook.
It's the first time I've ever heard anyone say my favorite lawyer.
So and purchasing. I mean we have studios that everyone works in, and there's a lot of gear. If any of you have home studios or worked in studios and like bought plugins for your workstation or something like that and managed the license and all that, imagine that across like 50 people. So that's a whole thing in and of itself. So there's this whole infrastructure that we've built as well.
So in terms of the music itself, how many different uses and how many different, so we have cinematics music, we have music for the trailer, we have in-game music. Can you just outline all the different uses of music at Blizzard?
Well, I think that music is part of the brand. So when you think of World of Warcraft, that's a game, but Warcraft is a universe. And it goes back to Warcraft 1, 2, 3, the expansions. And it lives on, kind of an adjunct way in Hearthstone. It's a franchise. And so when you think across that, the music could end up being used to kind of tie all that stuff together, because some things cross-promote each other. And the number of uses has increased over the years. And so apropos to the fact that we're doing a concert Sunday night, which I hope you're all going to, and remember it's not here, it's at the convention center. It's, now like when I write a piece of music, I kind of think, or at least when I'm writing music for the game, I'm thinking, maybe that one could be in the show someday. I better write an introduction and an ending, because maybe the game only needs a middle. So that's interesting. The last 10 years, we've had to start thinking about concert use, which is really cool. And maybe it goes on to sheet music, or...
Yeah, we're going to have to take out all the swear words out of all the performance instructions from the sheet music before we publish it, I think. So another question, you have this amazing ability, and I'm saying this from the inside, that when Russell's working with other composers as the audio director, you have this amazing way of bringing out the individual voice of the composer and yet keeping it within the sonic identity of whichever game, if it's Warcraft, if it's because to me, Warcraft and Starcraft and Diablo, those are the three most, and Overwatch as well, of course. They're all so sonic. They each have a sonic identity that's unique. But what's the thing that's constant, because different composers work and swap around on the different IPs. But what's constant about it is your direction, which somehow brings out the individual voices of your fellow composers, and yet somehow keeps it within a sonic identity for that particular game. It's unbelievable. How do you do that?
Well, I really appreciate that. First off, there's no one right way to do it. I just know that sometimes it's staying out of the way. So Overwatch is an example where I think my role was mainly I suggested a couple of composers that I thought would be really good and approach it in a unique way. But it was really Derek Duke, who is one of the composers on staff, who then took that sort of roster of people and he collated all their ideas, and somehow out the other end, comes this new sound, the first new IP, intellectual property franchise, whatever you want to call it. First new one in 20 years of Blizzard's history, which was a tall order. Now on World of Warcraft, which has a lot of music in it, you couldn't really have too much because you play it a lot. And it's, so in that case, it's sort of brute force. We have several composers working on it. So flashback to Warlords of Draenor, and so we've got Eimear, we have Craig, and 5 other composers, counting myself, working on this project. And the technique we used there, which had kind of proven out a couple of expansions prior to Warlords, was something that I called the concept music phase. And that came out of the fact that I was really envious of the concept artists. They would take time at the beginning of the project to take their blank sheets of paper, and they kind of knew the idea. We're going to make Pandaria, and all they had was a few bits of artwork from Samwise, of the brewmaster and whatnot, and they paint, and they paint what they're dreaming of and what they think the world is to them, and that inspires us for sure. Yet I felt kind of jealous of that. So what we started doing, I think, might have been with Pandaria, was the first time we did this concept music phase, where at that same time that they were creating concept art, I got all 7 of us together. We all saw the same. There were only a couple pieces of concept art at the time, and there was a basic outline of what the expansion was about. And so all 7 of us, so in the case of Draenor, all 7 of us had this exact same inspiration. Very little, but just enough. Basically what the main conflict was in the story. Send everyone off with one creative direction. I don't talk about timbres or instrumentation or anything like that. I don't talk about major chords and minor chords. I simply said, please tell me a story. Your assignment is to write 5 minutes of music, cold, out of your brain. Whatever you've been inspired to do, it's like, what does Warlords of Draenor mean to me in this nascent form? And tell me a story. So everyone goes off and writes, including myself, and we then meet up again in the studio with real musicians, live musicians, and we record it all. So, 5 minutes times 7 people is 35 minutes of music, I think, if my math is right. And so it's a lot of stuff. This was actually a pretty serious session, but there was a lot of trust. So we knew we weren't going to get anything way off base or anything, but obviously I didn't know what we were going to get. I only knew what I had written. And the key is that we're all in there together, listening to each other's music get recorded. And in that process, when we're talking and we're listening, we start, this sort of organic osmosis thing started. And by the end of those sessions, I have to say, every bit of that music made it into the game. And by the end, maybe nearly a year later, when I was putting the soundtrack album together, I could no longer tell who wrote what, because we had gotten into each other's heads that early on. And again, it was, I didn't tell them to do that. It happened naturally, because instead of it being this hide in your studio and then have a grand reveal, we were all together when the musicians were first interpreting it and making it audible. And that's a powerful point to start kind of mixing each other's ideas together.
It's also, I mean, I remember it well. It was such an amazing experience. I actually felt like a student again in class with your classmates, and it had that same feeling of vulnerability when your music is being played in front of people who you genuinely really care about their opinion.
Yeah, it's a certain amount of healthy competition, you know.
Yeah, and vulnerability as well.
Absolutely, and there's a gentleman named Glenn Stafford who actually founded the sound department many years ago, and just about every session we're on, he makes me mad because he comes up with a piece of music I wish I had written, and I'm just, oh, damn you, Glenn, but thank you.
We might be playing one of his pieces on Sunday night. We might be. I don't want to say for sure, I don't know. I want to tell some stories from Dublin, from Diablo 3.
Oh God.
Yeah. So if you open the soundtrack album to Diablo 3, you'll see all of these Irish names inside the soundtrack album. And it was, Russell said to me a couple of years before, actually a couple of years before, he said, we're trying to find something that sounds a little different for Diablo 3, something that's unique, and any ideas. So I sent him, things like Welsh male voice choirs and period instrument baroque orchestras and all this stuff. And I said, but there's one group that I think sounds like nobody else on the planet. They've got a unique sound, they have a unique technique for vocal production. Their director's one of the composers I respect most, definitely in Ireland, but also in the world. And that group is Noone. So I sent the stuff to Russell. You sent it to the directors and stuff. What happened?
I did. I picked a couple of their pieces where they. Are you familiar with the Noone? Yes. There's this harmonic thing they do with their. I don't know how they do it.
The Tibetan thing.
It's not. Yeah. It's not tuba and throat singing. It's this resonance thing they do. You can't see it. It's all happening in their mouths, and it has to be the right piece of music that gets them to do that. So I felt there was something there, and I don't normally play something that like another piece of music that's not from the game for the directors, but this is a pretty big commitment to come over here and do it. So thankfully they bought in because they hadn't heard anything like it before. Plus the accent's different. We were quite used to the kind of Hollywood kind of news anchor accent, and which don't blend together really well at all. And then the other side of it is there's this brilliant choir in London called the London Voices, which is almost liturgically perfect, right? Everything's blending so perfectly. And Noone is a gorgeous sound you've never heard before.
Well, what was interesting about it is, and this is a typical Russell creative move, and this surprised me and opened my mind, was we recorded the orchestra in California, but I thought, Noone, they're going to want this. He said, I want two different choirs. I want a heaven choir and a hell choir. And I assumed, Noone with their pure sound and everything, that's going to be the heaven choir. No, it was, Russell decided to make hell this really seductive, draw you in sort of place, and this sound. So you cast Noone as the hell choir. That's such a great idea. And
then the aforementioned London Voices, and we went with a slightly more weighting on the male side of the group.
The Knights Templar kind of thing.
And yeah, because in Diablo, heaven, there's been some infighting going on in heaven, and so much so that they're so distracted that Diablo can basically walk in the side door and knock the place over. So that was just something we tried early on and worked.
So here's what happened. We went into Windmill Lane, and Michael McGlynn, he's a national treasure as far as I'm concerned. He's one of the most interesting musicians in the country at the moment. And Michael wanted to warm up the choir, And just a little backstory, Chris Metzen, creative director at Blizzard, is Irish American, and his favorite song is Danny Boy. And of course, Irish people, we have this kind of love-hate relationship with that song.
Michael said he resisted arranging it for years.
25 years, he said, yeah. So I thought, you know, I'm dying to hear what this sounds like. So there was you, Joey Ray Hall was the head of the video department at the time. Joey Ray came over, and we're standing there and we're all jet lagged, and I've dragged the lads over from Orange County to come to Dublin on good faith, and everything I'm thinking, oh my god, this is how we, you know, I'm nervous about how things are going to go down, because the way we run sessions, it's like military precision. Every minute is incredibly valuable, and it's a different, more organic process. So Noone started singing Michael's arrangement of Danny Boy, and the three of us Egypts started bawling.
The ladies and the gentlemen were standing facing each other in two rows, and luckily we filmed it, and we brought Chris Metzen in to the office to see it one day, and he broke down. It was it was so beautiful. It was otherworldly.
Yeah, it was absolutely, and for me it was the first time since I left just out of college, was the first time I'd performed or recorded in Ireland, and it was like the ultimate, like, push my buttons homecoming moment. But that score went on. Then we went over to Abbey Road and we recorded the London Voices with Terry Edwards. But that score got a BAFTA nomination.
It did, and that was the one that actually, once I heard, I had written some music for Noone, and I talked to Michael McGlynn at length to talk, and he very graciously lent me some of his arrangements so I could see, you know, kind of how he was doing things, if you can ever really do that with another artist. But I at least could kind of see where they've been, and that was the one where after I got exposed to him, I think it was like after the first session, walking around them and between them while they sang and listening to all these sounds, I suddenly realized that I was missing a few things that would really leverage them, really make them amazing. So that's the time that I stayed up all night, sitting on the bed in the hotel room with a little pencil and paper and an iPad keyboard, because my pitch isn't perfect, and finally wrote more correctly for them, like to really sort of allow them to really shine and do what they do, and they were kind enough to perform it in concert one time.
Well, yeah, they did at the National Concert Hall. I was actually in town at the time I went to see them, and it was so great because they actually lit the organ at the back of the National Concert Hall in flames during Diablo 3. It was brilliant.
and Hosier was in the choir then.
Yeah, that's right. He was actually, that's the trivia is he was singing on the Diablo 3.
So Hosier is in the Diablo 3 soundtrack, and he's in that video. You can find that video of that concert on YouTube. And what's cool is we get a lot more hits now, because besides saying Diablo 3, Blizzard, maybe my name, and a Noone, it says early Hosier.
Well, we've had so many adventures, you wouldn't believe it, and I'm so I want to thank you, Russell, for being here in Dublin with us. It's really, really special, and he was here last year as well, giving us time, and we're all excited to see you perform on Sunday night, Video Games Live. And he's going to perform 3 pieces. I'm not going to tell you what they are, and one of them is a big reveal as well. So you do have a surprise for us?
Yeah, if it's at that time. By the way, this is my conducting teacher. She's awesome. And is it tomorrow you're doing a conducting workshop?
Yeah.
Yes, this is good. That's how I started with that.
Yeah, I only for very, very special people.
And the bug bit me, and I'm having a great time with it.
Yeah.
So
he's really, really good too.
Do people, anyone play World of Warcraft out there? Good, we gotta get some more. So we announced August 30th, the new expansion, Legion's coming out. I thought if you'll indulge me, I just finished mixing this piece about 4 days ago. I thought you might like to hear a piece from Legion. So, if you could play it loud, please. had to bring Uilleann pipes. Those were played by Eric Rigler, who played Titanic, the Uilleann pipes there, and then the Scottish Highland pipes for Braveheart, and then he played on Wrath of the Lich King, and you may recognize that last theme coming from Wrath of the Lich King. That piece is called Stormheim. It's for a new zone in the game, and there's Vrykul there and stuff, so there's a little quote from Wrath of the Lich King.
So everyone, you heard it here first in Dublin, the first of anything to do with World of Warcraft Legion, and
there's another thing I wish I could play you today, but I can't, because it would be too spoilery.
It may or may not exist.
It exists, it's just too spoilery, but it has to do with Ireland and the fact that, you know, every time I come here, something, you know, something special gets, you know, under my skin, whether it's, you know, Noone, the Uilleann pipes, or, you know, a beautiful voice. So I wrote a song a long time ago. I've written a few songs for World of Warcraft, like Lament of the Highborn and Invincible and things like that. So there's a new song in Legion. I won't tell you the name of it, but it features a voice that I'm just very proud of. It's going to be a cool thing, and you'll be hearing it soon. And it's sung by Ireland's own Nella, who's here. Where is she? Nella?
There she is. There.
Stand up, Nella. There she is. She's having a great time in the music scene here, and so I'm thrilled she's making her video game debut with us.
So that's exactly why we're doing iDig, is to bring all these creative, amazing people together from across the world, push what we do further, be together, have fun, have a good time, and fill Russell's brain with uilleann pipes. And so everybody, please show your appreciation for the amazing Russell Brower.
Thank you for coming.
He's here all week.
What's next?
So we're going to take a break for a few minutes, and then next we have the DIT Irish
This is
Traditional
going to be
Music.
awesome.
See you in a few minutes, everyone.